If you've been wanting to make mozzarella cheese, but you felt a little intimidated by the process, don't worry, today I'm going to demystify the whole process for you and share with you the world's easiest mozzarella cheese recipe. I'm also going to be sitting down for a few minutes and having a little coffee chat with you about family milk cows and answering your most commonly asked questions. If you're new here, I'm Stacy, homeschooling and homesteading mama of 7, on a mission to ditch the grocery store and become more self-sufficient. Subscribe to our channel to learn more about our journey and how we are making that dream come true. We're pretty disappointed today. Wednesday is usually our day to go skiing at the local ski hill, but we got dumped on with rain last night, and then it froze this morning, and now it's back to snowing. It is an icy mess out there. We don't usually get rain here in February, so this was very strange. But anyway, we decided to make the best of it and just make it a cozy day in the kitchen. While the kids are getting started on their baking projects, I'm going to go sit down with my tea and answer milk cow questions first. If you're just looking for the mozzarella cheese recipe, I put a timestamp in the description. The wind is intense, so if you can hear whistling in the background, that's what that is. I figured since we're going to be making mozzarella cheese today, it would be fun to answer some of your questions about having a family milk cow. I frequently have questions in my inbox, and then yesterday I put on Instagram a question box asking what questions do you have for me about having a family milk cow, and I wanted to address some of those here today because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions or fears that aren't necessarily true, and it may be a more reasonable thing than you realize to take on a family milk cow. Okay, the first question I always get asked is, where do you find a family milk cow? We have had 3 milk cows over the years. We bought 2 when we first moved here, and now we have Jan, and all 3 were purchased off of Craigslist. For me in our area, I found that that's the best place to look. I know there are many Facebook groups that are buy-sell for family milk cows, but for me, I've never found anything local, and I have looked at shipping cows from either lower in our state or from another state, and it was gonna be pretty expensive to ship them here. And then plus you can't see them in person before you purchase, so it made me a little nervous. But those are both great places to look. So Craigslist, Facebook groups. I think the one that I'm on is called Family Milk Cow Market. Another great place to look for a family milk cow is at local organic dairies. I'm not talking like the big commercial dairies, but small dairies in your area. And they're often getting rid of cows that aren't meeting their standards for production, but they would be completely fine as a family milk cow. Okay, next question. How much does a milk cow cost? There is a huge range of what people pay for a family milk cow. I will say that personally, we have spent about $1,100 on each of our cows, but that is very specific to our area and the type of cow we were buying, but maybe that will give you just a rough starting point. I will say that I've seen many online around the $2,000 or $2,200 mark, and those are pretty decent normal prices as well, especially if you're getting a miniature or one that's been bred specifically to be a family milk cow. The reason that we got her at about $1,100, I think is what we paid, is because she was at the high end of what's considered a miniature. And so the farm that was selling her, they didn't want to keep breeding her in since she was more on the high end, and they wanted to shoot a little smaller. So she was a cull for them, and that was perfect for us because she is the perfect size for our family. So there's going to be a lot of situations out there where it's not necessarily a bad or an unhealthy cow. It's just something that doesn't fit their breeding program or their dairy production needs. So you might be able to find a good deal as well. Okay, the next question is, how do you breed your cow to have a calf every year if you don't have a bull or other cows? There's 2 things I want to address here. First of all, I highly do not recommend getting 1 cow. We actually did this when we got Jan, and it was a huge mistake. We knew we would be getting another cow, but we just didn't know how soon. So long story short, she kept us up at night. She was so loud and so upset. We ended up going and getting her a calf so that she would settle down. Okay, another reason to have 2 cows though is when you only have 1, they may not cycle. So you may not know if they're in heat. They can have a silent heat, or they may not cycle at all. This can be a problem if you're trying to breed, even if you plan on doing AI. Okay, so that brings me to my next thing, which is artificial insemination or AI. So this is how you get calves if you don't want to deal with having a bull on your property, which is a big thing to deal with. So we've had bulls before, not here, we're not set up here, but at our previous home we did, not in Washington, but where we rented here in Wisconsin. That was really convenient as far as we didn't have to time anything, it just happened naturally. However, bulls are kind of scary. This was a huge Black Angus bull, and I certainly wouldn't want my kids in there in the pen with it. I would never even go in the pen with it. we were lucky enough to have someone, bring the bowl, drop it off, pick it up when we were done, so it worked fine. What we have chosen to do instead is AI, and that is such an easy process, especially since I'm not doing it myself. We have a dairy farmer who came and did the AI for us. It really took him probably 5 minutes, and he came 2 days in a row, and then it was a done deal. So that is very easy. It's not very expensive if you can find a tech who will do it. I think the most expensive part of it would be if you're ordering the semen, specifically for a certain breed, or if you're paying your vet tech or your AI tech a lot. I'm not sure what that normally costs since we got that part for free. So definitely reach out to vets or AI techs in your area and you can get a better idea of what that would cost you. Okay, does it get overwhelming after the fun wears off? And does the consistency make you feel stuck? Well, if you ask my kids, they would say, yes, we are over it and it is no longer fun. They don't just love to go out to milk. And honestly, there are times when I'm like, oh, I don't want to go out. It's cold, it's rainy. My kids do the majority of the milking, so I can't complain too much. But even when I have to go out there, it's not always fun. I don't know anybody who just loves to muck out a barn. However, it is so worth it. I do a lot of the processing and cleaning. My kids do the milking, but we all enjoy the products that come from that. Fresh, raw milk. We get all of our milk products, and I think all of us can look at that and be grateful enough that the work is still worth it to us. As far as the consistency, I know a lot of people stress about, oh no, I'm going to be tied to this milking schedule for the rest of my life, and how are we going to go on vacation? I honestly don't feel stressed out by that. It could be in part that I'm a homebody and I don't leave the house much, so there's that. But we do go visiting a lot. When we go visiting, let's say we milked at 7 a.m. in the morning, and so technically we should be milking at 7 p.m. in the evening to keep it about 12 hours apart. That is ideal. However, I will say that if we're out visiting, we're not rushing home to go milk. We just milk whenever we get home, whether it's 9 or 10, and that's just fine. We don't stress about that. Now, if we were a dairy trying to go for very high production and keeping our numbers really good, then that wouldn't be a very good idea to be off by that much time. But for our cow and our situation and our lifestyle, this makes it very doable for us, and it doesn't make us stress over having to change our whole life around so that we can be home to milk. Now, as far as going out of town or going on vacation, I will say it pays off to have friends or neighbors who could milk for you if you needed. I have a friend and neighbor who would gladly come over and milk for me if I needed. And then we also have kids in the area who know how to milk, friends who would come over and milk. I'm not worried about that either. I will say too, in case you don't have someone in the area who could milk for you, I think you could definitely reach out though and find like a 4-H group. There's gotta be somebody who's willing to learn. But anyway, even if you didn't have that, there is the fact that your cow will have to be dried up for a couple months each year before she has her calf again. We will dry up Jan. I think we have to dry her up in July this year. Then that's gonna give us a couple months where we can go camping or take trips, and we won't have a milk cow unless we get another one to have to worry about. So that would be a good opportunity to take vacations or that kind of thing as well. Oh, another thing. So we actually just switched from milking twice a day to once a day, which has been very nice. And the reason that we made the switch was that production was going down, so I knew it wouldn't make a huge difference switching from 2 to 1. And it wouldn't bother her. She wasn't gonna get mastitis or anything from us doing that. And also, it was so bitter cold outside. I just felt like it was more realistic for us to milk once a day, and it's been a very nice change for the winter. We'll continue doing this once a day milking until she dries up this summer. To switch from a twice a day milking to a once a day milking, you simply switch over. One day we had milked her twice, 12 hours apart, and the next day we switched to just once a day. And it went smoothly, didn't cause any issues, and we're still getting just about as much milk. We're just getting it at one time instead of 2 times. I highly recommend switching to that once a day milking if you get to the point of feeling like you're overwhelmed or you just can't handle that busy of a schedule. Some people even start with a once a day milking schedule. Another way to make this work is that if you have a calf, you can calf share. Calf sharing is where, say you lock the calf and the mom up at night, and so they're separated, and then in the morning you can milk, and then you can put them back together for the day. The calf is gonna get plenty of milk from mama, and then you're still gonna get that milk in the morning from her being separated from her calf. That's a good situation for a lot of people. I know others who don't like it because then they have to deal with the calf, and it's just easier for them to milk all of the milk out and then bottle feed the calf, but it might be something we consider in the future. The next question is, how long does it take to milk from start to finish? And this really depends on a few things. So if they're milking by hand, it's going to take a little bit longer. If we're milking with a machine, it's quicker, but then there's more time involved in cleaning the machine and sanitizing everything. It's really not a huge difference in time whether you're hand milking or machine milking, it's just where you're spending that time. So in the winter, it's been really nice to use the machine. The kids can go out, they leave and come back within about 30 to 45 minutes. And then I spend about 20 minutes in here doing the cleaning, sanitizing, and processing. Then if they're hand milking, it takes them closer to an hour. And I would say if I'm hand milking, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. There's pros and cons of each. I will say in the winter, we'll definitely continue to use the machine just so it's less time spent outside in the nasty weather and it's easier for my kids to do. In the summer, I may switch back to hand milking just so there isn't all the cleanup and worry about making sure the hoses are sanitized and all of that. You just milk straight into the container and it's good to go. How much land do you need for a milk cow? This depends on whether you are planning on feeding that milk cow by grazing it on your property or if you plan to buy hay and bring that hay in. The rule of thumb, I guess, is about 1 acre per cow if you're grazing, and I would say that's a minimum, and that's for a milk cow, not a beef cow. For a milk cow on good pasture, I'd say about 1 acre. However, you could have your cows in a smaller area and then just bring in some good quality hay. So that's currently what we're doing. Our cows wouldn't want to be out in our field right now anyway because there's a couple feet of snow out there and ice. So it's been a good situation for the winter, but in the spring we do plan to fence off our whole property and create paddocks so that they can graze throughout the summer, and then we'll still have some of our field where we can cut the hay and then bale that for the winter months when they're back up here closer to the house. Another thing to keep in mind is manure management, and I would say that's been our biggest struggle with having a smaller area, is that manure needs to get moved out. You can't just depend on it to break down in that small of an area. We're shoveling manure, we're trying to figure out what to do with it. Honestly, it's been kind of a problem. I'm excited for spring to get the cows out of that area because we're sick of hauling poop. I'm guessing that the people who are asking this question are really asking, do I have enough room for a milk cow? I would say that if you have a ½ acre that you could devote to that family milk cow, you could make it work. You're going to have to haul out manure, you're going to have to bring in hay, but it would be fine. If you want to put them out to graze, then you're gonna need at least 1 acre per cow to make that work. So if you're getting 2 cows, you should have a 2 acre area for those cows to eat at least seasonally, and then maybe you would still have to bring in some hay for the winter. And then of course with that small of an area, like if you're going with a ½ acre for 2 cows, you're gonna have manure to deal with and you're gonna have to come up with a way to get that out of their pen and keep it clean. Okay, along that same question, someone asked if you need a barn for a milk cow. And I would say yes and no. We actually, as many of you know, started building a barn and didn't finish before fall. We just put up a temporary shelter. I would say that what they do need is a place that they can get out of the wind and the rain. Cows actually do really well in the cold. What they have a harder time with is dampness and wind. If they don't have a place to get out of that cold wind, that can really affect them. And then if they're wet and don't have a place to get dry, that can cause respiratory distress and, you know, respiratory illnesses, and you don't want to be going down that road. So yes, they need a shelter of some sort through the winter months at least, or any rainy months that you have in your location. However, they don't need a big fancy barn. They don't need insulation. As long as they have bedding, a place to get out of the weather, they're good. But we are very excited for our barn this summer. And I think the biggest benefit to it will be that we have a place to milk that is warmer and more protected for us. The cows don't really care. Another consideration for taking care of cows through the winter months is access to feed and water. Technically, cows can eat snow and they won't get dehydrated. However, it takes them more calories to turn that snow into water that their body can use, obviously, and so they're going to need more feed to make up for that if they don't have access to water. Providing them fresh water and continuous feed is very important. Cows, the way that they keep themselves warm and deal with cold weather is to be continuously chewing their cud. If they don't have that process of digestion going on, they're going to freeze. So a place out of the wind, a place out of damp conditions, water, food, and you're good to go. Okay, the last question for today was in regards to breed. I actually get a lot of questions about what breed you recommend, what breeds have you had, and can I milk a fill in the blank? So here's the answer to that. We have a Jersey. I absolutely love having a Jersey. Our Jersey is very well tempered. I know that some are not, but we love her sweet nature. And then also the cream content is amazing. And to me, that is like the biggest benefit of having a family milk cow is that cream. We used to have Ayrshires, and Ayrshires are also wonderful family milk cows. I would say a couple things with them. First of all, they have horns naturally. I would definitely try to find one that's been disbudded. I did have one with horns and that became an issue, and so I would not recommend that. It was kind of scary, especially with little kids around. Another thing with Ayrshires is that their milk is sometimes naturally homogenized, which was really cool for pouring on cereal. There was no cream clumps like you sometimes get with Jersey milk because it's so creamy. However, it also takes a long time for the cream to rise. We would have to leave the milk in the fridge for a couple days to get any cream. So it depends what you're going for. If your goal is lots of cream, then a Ayrshire that has the naturally homogenized milk, or a cow that has a lower amount of butterfat, so a lower amount of cream, might not be the best bet. So if you've ever wondered, can I milk a beef breed or another breed? Our calf currently is actually a beef breed. So I was asking the dairy farmer who we got that calf from if I could milk her because she's going to be wonderfully tempered, she's great around kids, and I'm kind of sad that she's not a milk cow. And he said, well, you could, and actually, so she's half Angus, half Seminole, I believe. And he said that Angus actually are pretty good for milk. However, their milk production goes way down at about 6 months. He said you're basically getting nothing at 6 months in. This just isn't ideal for a family milk cow because obviously you need that production to last at least until they calf again. So yes, you can milk a beef breed. Yes, you're probably gonna get fine milk. You're not going to get as high of a cream amount and you're not going to have it last as long. Based on just my experience and what I've seen, I would recommend getting a Jersey, a Guernsey, or a Brown Swiss. Okay, that's all of the questions I'm going to cover today on family milk cows. However, I really want to do a full YouTube video on our setup, our cow, and show you the milking process, and I can answer more questions at that point. But it's probably going to have to wait until spring because right now it's just not optimal to film out there. It's usually dark when we're milking because we're only milking at night. This spring or summer, you can look forward to more family milk cow content. In the meantime, I'm going to be sharing with you all of our favorite homemade dairy recipes. Today, I'm going to be showing mozzarella cheese, and then in the future, I'd love to show you how we make sour cream and cream cheese and hard cheeses and ice cream and all of the things. I will be sharing those over the next few months. Okay, time to go get back in the kitchen. I'm gonna go stir that cheese and then see if the kids are ready to do some baking as well. Okay, to make the world's easiest mozzarella cheese, you're going to need milk, and store-bought is fine, but either way, you're going to want a little butterfat in there. I sometimes will skim the cream before making mozzarella. I've found, though, that a 1-inch cream line is what gives me the best consistency. If you're using store-bought, 2% or whole milk is just fine. You will also need citric acid, which you can find in the canning section of many stores, and rennet, which is available from cheese-making supply stores. I will link everything in the description. We'll start by adding our milk to a large pot. You can do a gallon of milk or 2, or sometimes I do 4. Today I'm doing 2 gallons. Then we will dissolve our citric acid in some cool water. You need 1.5 teaspoons citric acid and 1/2 cup of water per gallon of milk. So here I'm doing 3 teaspoons citric acid and 1 cup of water. Stir until well dissolved and then mix it into the milk. You can whisk it in, but I will say that a cheese making spoon is very handy because it allows you to stir up and down in the pot, and it's going to make working with a curd easier too. Don't worry if you don't have one though, just use a large spoon. Now we're going to slowly heat up the milk to 100 degrees Fahrenheit over medium heat. I continue to stir every once in a while during this process and use an instant read thermometer to check the temperature. While the milk is heating, we're going to prepare our rennet. This is the rennet I'm using, but no matter what you buy, you'll find instructions that tell you how much is needed to set up each gallon of milk. This one says I need 1/2 teaspoon per gallon of milk, so I'm going to use 1 teaspoon, and I'm going to dissolve that into 1/2 cup of water. When the milk hits 100 degrees, turn off the heat, add the diluted rennet as evenly as possible, and spend a few minutes stirring in up and down motions. Then, put on a lid and set a timer for 15 minutes. When the timer goes off, remove the lid. You should see that the milk has set up. Use a large knife to cut a grid pattern into the now hardened curd. Aim for about 1-inch squares, but it definitely doesn't have to be perfect. Then let it sit for another 5 minutes. Towards the end of the 5 minutes, turn your sink water on hot to heat it up. After the 5 minutes is up, you're going to use the spoon to gently stir the curds and cut the rest of it into 1-inch cubes. Again, don't worry about perfection here. Next, you're going to drain the whey off of the curds. You can set a colander on a pot like I have here to save the whey for other things or to give to your chickens. Then fill the pot with hot water until it covers the curds, gently stirring it with your hands to break the curds apart. Dump the curds back into the colander a second time, and this time you can just let the water go down the sink. Now we're going to add a little salt. Sprinkle 1 teaspoon per gallon of milk over the curds and mix it in. After it is mixed well, ball the curds together as best you can and place the ball back into the pot. Let the pot fill up with hot water again until it covers the curds. Then take that pot back to the stove. Turn the stove back onto low heat. As the water heats up, the curds are going to more easily stick together and form a ball. If you have more than a gallon of milk that you started with, you may want to separate the large ball into 2 smaller ones like I did here. Now it's time for the fun part. Start picking up each ball with your hands and letting the cheese stretch down towards the water. Dip the whole ball back in and repeat the process, this time grabbing another part of the ball. This is not an art, so don't stress about technique here. You are simply dipping it in hot water and letting it stretch out. This is going to give you that mozzarella consistency. The water should now be too hot to put your hands in. Taking tongs or whatever kitchen tool that will do the job, a spoon works in a pinch, you're going to pick up the cheese ball again and continue letting it stretch in the same way until it stretches easily without breaking and develops a glossy appearance. This should take about 7 to 10 minutes. When you hit this point, you are done. If you want to form it into cheese sticks or use it fresh, it's ready to work with at this point. What I'm going to do to finish it off is to press it into a ball, knead in a bit more salt just to taste, and then form it into a ball to harden. I'm stretching out the top to get a nice shape and texture, and then I will place it in a bowl, cover it, and it will be ready to use. I'm going to place this in the refrigerator now. Mozzarella cheese is so easy and fun to make, but my favorite part is how versatile it is. We like to use it on pizza, eat it as a snack, or mix it in with a variety of dishes. If this just blew your mind how easy making mozzarella cheese is, let me know in the comments and tell me how you're going to use your first batch of this amazing homemade cheese. I will also have a link in the description with the written instructions. Alright, that was a long video, so hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something new. I'm going to go help my kiddos finish their baking projects, and I will see you back here next week.